There's a lot to love about LumiArte's Squad 51 versus the Flying Saucers, but what I love most about it is that it is itself a love letter to the early sci-fi movies it models itself after. This is not a parody or a piss take of an older, simpler time, but rather a pastiche, a lovingly crafted and brilliantly realised homage that is refreshingly lacking in the post-ironic, too cool for school mockery it often seems is the only way our current culture knows how to relate to the media of earlier times. In the face of our endless detached, knowing smiles, something this genuine, heartfelt and respectful feels all the more astonishing than its brilliant execution already makes it. And make no mistake, the way Squad 51 is executed is indeed brilliant, both in the incredible look of the game that manages to make you feel like you're actually manipulating real solid objects, albeit homemade ones with strings attached, but perhaps more importantly in the level of knowledge it exhibits and the detail of the observations of its source material. It's one thing to be able to bring a vision to life on the technical side of things, but it's another to know exactly what it is that vision requires to capture not just the look but the heart and soul of its reference points. You can see how the game looks in this footage, but believe me, playing it for yourself takes things to a whole new level, and I think this is the first time since I was a little kid, having my first try on a ZX Spectrum, that the sheer ability to simply move something on screen how I saw fit has brought me such joy. And it's not just playing the game that has given me such joy, the cutscenes also harken back to a previous time in the most positive way too. I'm not sure if everyone felt the same as me, but back in the kind of 5th generation days of console gaming, I remember cutscenes feeling like a kind of reward for having got to a certain stage or achieved something. Cutscenes looked markedly different to the main game and communicated exciting plot elements in a short, snappy fashion to motivate you to keep playing. Today, of course, a lot of cutscenes are long, bloated, tautological bore fests that seem designed to punish players and break up the flow of play. Squad 51 and its fully voiced, human-acted FMV cutscenes telling the story of the eponymous Rebel Squadron's fight against nefarious alien invaders, however, is a throwback to the days of cutscene as reward. Never longer than a minute or two, and with not every stage even featuring one. These scenes are as expertly worked as the game itself, and again, although they don't take themselves overly seriously, something basically impossible given the subject material, they're not silly or played overtly for laughs either. They're there to give the game some human interest and develop the plot, and they do that perfectly. And rarely have I ever felt more like there's actually someone inside the ship and weaving through enemy fire than in this game. And talking of weaving, let's finally actually take a look at how Squad 51 feels to play. I first heard of this probably nearly 5 years ago, and while it looked amazing, I also thought it looked like it would be a little rough around the edges in the gameplay department. And while that is true to an extent, this is far more enjoyable and competent as a shmup than I had hoped. The movement is kinda heavy and awkward, but I think that's largely intentional. You're supposed to be piloting something being pulled around on strings, and in a lot of ways it does feel like that. Usually that would be a big problem, but Squad 51 for the most part keeps the difficulty fairly toned down, and since it's not a bullet hell, you're rarely asked to engage in many tight, intricate manoeuvres. However, there are occasional moments where you are, and those sections can be rather frustrating, as your jerky movement coupled with a large hitbox make for some rather rough sailing. In terms of weaponry, you have a rapid fire shot and 2 specials that work on a cooldown timer and can be switched out and replaced between stages. For the most part, your main shot is just a straight ahead machine gun which tilts slightly up and down depending on your movement, but there are some stages where you pilot different craft and get 3-way or rear shots added to your arsenal. Your specials start off with just a slow downward arcing bomb, but add multiple missile strikes or powerful cluster bombs as well as a host of other options. You earn these extras as you play, with points collected in each stage being used towards rewards available between each stage or after a death. These include weapon upgrades, but also offer you extra lives, faster timer recharges, and various other stat boosts, meaning you're continually powering up as you progress, and even if you do get stuck now and then, it's not long before you have more upgrades available to assist you on your way to glory. Also assisting you is the game's checkpoint system, although these checkpoints can feel randomly placed at times, with some long, difficult sections having none at all, while other, easier sections have them dotted about at much shorter intervals. Overall though, Squad 51 is not the toughest game in the world, and with a bit of perseverance, most players should be able to at least get to the final stage. There are some sections where the game's commitment to its visual style does hinder it though. Without colour, it is inevitably going to be more difficult to provide clear-cut signals to the player, and there can be some visual chaos when there are a lot of explosions and enemy ships on screen at the same time. There are also occasional issues differentiating foreground, background and active elements, with the final boss featuring a particularly egregious example of this, but mostly you do know what's what. If things do get too much for you though, there's an option to turn on infinite lives if all you want to do is see how the story pans out. The game has two modes, a story mode that lets you play chapter by chapter and keep all your upgrades no matter which stage you choose, and a kind of arcade mode that starts you with 0 upgrades but allows you to power up as usual between stages. This loops apparently up to 5 times, but while the effort there is appreciated, I'm not sure that will be the appeal to many people with this one. Instead, the replayability comes from just wanting to experience certain stages again, and in another throwback to earlier times, this is again the first time I think since I was a kid I've had a game I actually want to show off to other people. I'd like my total non-gamer dad to see this because I think he'll just love how it looks. I want to show it to my little nephew for the same reason. I want to tell my monster movie loving colleague all about it, and that, far more than its admittedly competent shooting action, is what makes Squad 51 quite such a special game. It is spectacular in the truest sense of the word, in that it is a spectacle to be experienced and enjoyed as much as played for score or survival. And talking of score, there isn't really much score play, although the game does mention rankings in one of its power-up descriptions, something I couldn't find any further reference to in the game or menus, but which I have seen the devs say is coming in an update. There are a couple of other relatively minor issues the game suffers from, notably rather long load times for a shmup, particularly when just restarting from a checkpoint. Also, watch out when downloading this as it is a big boy, weighing in at 12 gigs, so make sure your SD card is ready. Hopefully someone will give this a physical release on a 16 gig cart, both to save us all some space, but also because I feel like this is a game that's going to have a far wider appeal than just the shmup audience, and could be a really solid seller. Now, summing up Squad 51 and rating it is a little difficult because it raises the question of how much weight do you give to presentation and how much to pure gameplay. Usually gameplay is king for me, but such is the strength of Squad 51's entire presentation, and the fact that that presentation seeps over into how it actually feels to play, I feel like it's appropriate to weigh that far more heavily than usual. And that's not to say, by the way, this wouldn't be a good game anyway, as even if we're just in your regular pixel art style, I'd still rate it decently. As a whole package though, this is just a wonderfully crafted little gem of an experience, and the perfect execution of the visual style and the wonderfully done cutscenes elevate it for me to be something really, really special, meaning I would give Squad 51 a 9 out of 10 and say it's something I really think every jaded gamer and non-gamer alike should experience, as it's sure to bring a smile, and a genuine, honest one at that, to the face of almost everyone who picks it up. Please do let us know your own thoughts on this one. It's not one that's going to blow you away if you're looking for a pure arcade style experience, but if you're looking for something beyond that, I really hope people are going to enjoy this as much as I did. So thanks very much for watching, hope to see you next time. Cheers.